Clerk.
Okay, you have 19 present, 2 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Please have your attention for the emergency announcement.
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you've reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the call, sir.
Notice of public hearing in accordance with Tennessee Code annotated sections 5-5-105 and 13-7-105. The Board of County Commissioners of Blount County, Tennessee will convene and hold public hearing on June 11, 2013 at 6:30 p.m. at the Blount County Courthouse Commission meeting room for the following proposed amendments to the zoning resolution of Blount County, Tennessee, being Resolution 00-06-010, and specifically the zoning map of Blount County, Tennessee. A resolution to amend the zoning map of Blount County, Tennessee from R1 Rural District 1 to RAC Rural Arterial Commercial for the properties located 4907 and 4911 Highway 411 South. The property is identified on tax map 100 and parcels 027.00 and 028.00.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, anyone wishing to make comment or enter testimony, if they'll come forward and be recognized. Seeing no one, I declare this public hearing closed.
At this time, I call the June 11th Blount County Board of Commissioners agenda meeting to order. Please register your presence here.
You have 19 present, 2 absent. You have a quorum.
Commissioners Birchfield and Merle expressed their apologies for not being able to be here tonight, but they had a conflict of interest that was unavoidable. At this time, I will take public input of items on the agenda. Ms. King.
Thank you. I'm Linda King in District 4, and I'll be speaking on an item on budget other. Common sense is something we seem to see less and less of these days. The Budget Committee forwarded to you an approval for the Sheriff's Department to apply for a $1.3 million grant for the COPS program to be spent for new employees. We would be required to cover 25% of the grants for 3 years. At the end of the grant, we'd be responsible for taking over their salaries, benefits, retirement, vehicles, and equipment. Where else can you work where you have a guaranteed job for life? According to the Commission and the Finance Director, we're in a crisis situation now, trying to balance the budget. How can you even think about adding $1.3 million to the backs of the taxpayers in 4 years? The comment was made that we're only applying for the grant. If we don't have the matching funds, you can always vote no later. Now tell me, when does that ever happen? The time to say no is now. We shouldn't be applying for a grant that we know we can't afford. Besides, what are we trying to build? A police state? I think we already have a pretty large sheriff's department for the size of our county. What happens when the sheriff's department starts asking for raises for employees in the future? We'd have a new group of personnel to cover, even though he still hasn't closed the gap on his lowest to highest paid deputies. When asked by a commissioner to give raises to the deputies on the bottom end, that request was ignored. The federal government is $17 trillion in debt. They shouldn't be handing out grants when they're broke. All they're doing is putting our kids and grandkids further and further in debt. Blount County is $250 million in debt. It's time to stop thinking about increasing government and time to make the cuts necessary to live within revenue. Don't come back with the comment, if we don't take the grant, someone else will. That doesn't make it right. Use some common sense. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak to items on the agenda? Seeing no other hands, we'll move on to item D, setting of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to set the agenda. Motion made by Mr. Lael, seconded by Mr. Carver. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote. Oh. Oh, I see.
Okay, you have 19 yeses.
The agenda has been set, and apparently I've skipped over the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from May 7th of 2013? Motion made by Ms. Lambert. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion about the minutes from May 7th of 2013? Seeing no discussion, please vote.
You have 18 yeses and 1 no.
Mr. Melton, was that supposed to be a yes? Yes. Duly noted, Mr. Melton. Thank you. At this time, we have the consent calendar. We have 2 appointments. Item 2A is the Blount County Library Board of Trustees. I will entertain a motion to move that forward to the full commission. Just for your reference, item 2B is simply for information only, so we will move that forward with the information being included in the packet for the full commission meeting. Any other discussion? Motion made by Mr. Moon, seconded by Mr. Kaler. At this time, please vote to forward item 2A and 2B forward to the full commission.
You have 19 yeses.
Items E2A and items E2B are hereby forwarded to the full commission. There is no unfinished business. We will then move to G1, a resolution to amend the zoning map of Blount County, Tennessee from R1 Rural District 1 to RAC Rural Arterial Commercial for the property located at 4907 and 4911 U.S. Highway 411 South, tax map 100, parcels 027.00 and 028.00. I will entertain a motion. Motion made by Mr. Kirby. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Wright. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote to forward item G1 forward to the full commission.
You have 19 yeses.
Item G1 is hereby moved to the full commission. Next up is item G2, resolution amending resolution number 0202004, entitled A Resolution Adopting Regulations for the Unincorporated Areas of Blount County pursuant to the authority of TCA sections 5-1-118C and 6-2-20122. I'll entertain a motion. Motion made by Mr. Lael. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Carver. Do we have any discussion on this motion? Yes, sir. Mr. Lael, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you. This is something we brought up last year. We've had an issue, and particularly down in my community down there at an intersection at William Blount Drive and Morganton Road. We have people coming in from out of state to solicit for donations at this street corner, and it creates all kinds of traffic hazards and a lot of aggravation for the local residents down there, and particularly in light of that's a major artery for the school buses from the schools down there, and they are out there inhibiting traffic during that process as well as other times in the day. We looked at this over a year ago when we were looking at the event thing for the roads, and at that time it was withdrawn because a commissioner indicated that volunteer firemen were using the empty boot contribution thing at intersections. Well, that's come to find out since that point in time that's no longer part of it. City of Maryville and Alcoa prohibit solicitations at intersections as a safety feature. The state of Tennessee in this last legislative session passed a bill which is sort of in the line of this. They prohibit on all state roads the use of children, as in a baseball team, softball team, etc., being in the intersection soliciting funds for safety purposes. The people in my district have asked and are kind of concerned about this because it does create several problems, and I would urge that we forward this and approve it to make it part of the County Powers Act, which we have the authority in this body to do so. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Noel, would this prohibit also a kid or a church from the person standing out on the side of the road with a sign doing the car wash somewhere else? They're not physically out in the road. I'm familiar with because I travel that road a lot. They're not out there with a bucket walking up to your car wanting a donation, but would this also prohibit something like that?
Prohibit that because they're not actually soliciting and are standing inside the lane of traffic as this has been going on, and to stand there and advertise with a sign would not in any way interfere with the flow of traffic, which standing in the middle of the intersection on four sides does indeed create a traffic flow problem.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing the board clear, please vote to motion is approved and shall be forwarded on to the full commission. Next up is item G3, budget transfers. I believe there are 5 budget transfers. Is that correct, Mr. Vineyard? I will entertain a motion, as the body would like to see these, to forward these on to the full commission. We have a motion made by Mr. Samples to move all 5 of the budget transfers. Do I have a second? Second made by Commissioner Moon. Do I have any discussion on any one of these 5 items? Mr. Fultz, you are recognized to speak, sir.
Yeah, I guess I just have a question on this cable franchise fees. We're moving money from fund balance to cable TV franchise fees. That doesn't make sense to me.
The cable franchise fee is performing a little better than budget. The amount of money in excess of what goes to the highway department, we have been depositing it in general county fund. We have to have a budget for that revenue because that's the authority for depositing the money there. The reason we're classifying it as a transfer is right now we project to end the year in a deficit and therefore use fund balance. We're bringing a new revenue to the table which would reduce the use of fund balance.
Okay, let me see whether, let me replay this to make sure I understand. You've had more than you expected in cable franchise fees coming in.
That is correct.
And you needed a place to put that, so you put it in the fund balance.
No, we've been putting it in cable revenue. There is an account for cable revenue.
Okay.
The effect of what we're doing is creating a budget for revenue, not appropriation. And the offset to that is we will use less fund balance to balance the budget because we're projecting less revenue than we are expenses.
All right, well, you give me the effect, but, okay, I'm seeing that you put it in a revenue account, and now you're moving it out of one revenue account to a different revenue account.
It effectively increases fund balance, all things being equal. I'm just telling you that up front, the projection is that we will end the year in a deficit, and because of that, that means we will use fund balance. I am bringing to you a new revenue that was not anticipated when this budget was approved. So therefore, we would use less fund balance.
Okay, but strictly speaking, these 4,000 accounts are revenue accounts, both of them.
That is correct.
Okay, and we're moving it from one revenue account to another revenue account.
Neither
one involves fund balance, as stated on this paper.
Yeah, I have to balance the transaction on the books. Since we don't budget revenue, when you consider the budget for next year, we list all the revenues. There is no revenue in the current budget for cable franchise fees in the general county fund. And I have to create a budget to give authority for us to deposit the money there, because there's no resolution that gives us that authority. The guiding resolution is the budget.
Okay, 489,900 is what?
Use of fund balance.
That's the name, that's the revenue account?
Use of fund balance.
Use of fund balance
Yes.
is the name of that revenue account.
Correct.
Okay, and 1,400 is presumably the cable franchise revenue
That's
account.
correct.
Okay. I think I understand.
So I'm increasing one and decreasing the other because it has to be in balance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions on the 5 budget transfer items? Seeing no discussion, please vote to forward all 5 forward to the full commission.
And that's in yeses.
All 5 items shall be forwarded on to the full commission. At this time, we are at item G4, budget increases. We have 3 affecting Fund 101, and we have 1 affecting Fund 151. I will entertain a motion to move all 3 of 101, or we can take them up individually.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send all 4 to the county commission, full commission.
We have a motion to move all 4 of the budget increases forward to the full commission. Do I have a second? Second? By Mr. Kirby. Any discussion on any of the 4 budget increases? Seeing no discussion, please vote to forward all 4 items forward to the full commission.
And that's in yeses.
That concludes item G4. All 4 items are approved to be forwarded to the full commission. Next is item G5, other budget items. We have 2 items that come to us from the purchasing committee. Resolution declaring the attached list of personal property surplus and available for sale on the internet auction. I'll entertain how does the group want to handle this? Do we want to take them? I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion been made to forward the resolution declaring the attached list of personal property surplus forward to the full commission for approval. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Mr. Fultz, you're recognized, sir.
On this list of personal property, we have the Drug Task Force building. Is that correct? I believe that's part of this item, is it not? Because the next item is on King Circle. That's not the Drug Task Force property.
Mr. Vineyard, I'm going to turn you on so you can answer Mr. Fultz's question. If you can give us some guidance, please.
The first resolution that you're considering is personal property, the vehicles and looks like some equipment that is proposed to be declared surplus and for sale. In response to Commissioner Folt's question, the 5th Judicial property is the next resolution.
Okay, I'll reserve my question for the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Vineyard. Any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, please vote to forward to the full commission the resolution declaring the attached list of personal property surplus. Commissioner Lael?
And 19 yeses.
The motion to declare the surplus property has been approved for forwarding to the full commission. At this time, I'll entertain a motion regarding the resolution declaring the property located at 1718, 1720, and 1722 King Circle surplus and available for sale. Do I have a motion to forward that to the full commission? Motion made by Ms. Lambert, seconded by Mr. Carver. Mr. Fultz, you are recognized, sir.
I guess this process is confusing me a bit. They've decided that they need a bigger space. And so they just sent us a letter saying, declare our property surplus. I think that sets a terrible precedent. Any department in the county who decides they want fancier space can send a letter to the mayor saying we want declare our property surplus. We want to get new property. That's not my impression of how things are supposed to work. I thought when a county department wanted a larger space, they were supposed to go to the space allocation committee of this commission. And the space allocation committee was supposed to look at available properties, empty county buildings, and make a recommendation as to what that department ought to do. Now, this hasn't been to the Space Allocation Committee. So this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why we're talking about it. It should go to the Space Allocation Committee first.
Any other question or discussion? Seeing no other discussion, please vote to forward this on to the full commission for.
We have 18 yeses and 1 no.
The resolution declaring the property located at 1718, 1720, and 1722 King Circle shall be forwarded on to the full commission. Next up is other budget items from the Budget Committee. There is an elections requesting permission to apply for a state computer grant. I'll entertain a motion. Motion made by Mr. Lewis to forward the elections requesting permission to apply for state computer grant forward to the full commission. There's a motion made by Mr. Lewis. Is there a second? Second made by Mr. Lael. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote.
Have 19 yeses.
The request to apply for a grant from the elections has been approved to be forwarded to the full commission. Next is the 5th Judicial Drug Task Force is requesting permission to apply for a 2013-2014 Justice Assistance Grant. I'll entertain a motion to forward this on to the full commission. Motion made by Mr. Kaler, seconded by Mr. Carver. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote.
Have 19 yeses.
The motion shall be forwarded on to the full commission. Next is the Blount County Sheriff's Office is requesting permission to apply for a U.S. Department of Justice COPS grant. I'll entertain a motion to forward that to the full commission. So moved, Mr. Chairman. Motion made by Mr. Kaler. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Farmer. Any discussion? Mr. French, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. This is just to apply for the grant. We're not obligated by just voting, sending this to the full commission. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. French. We have a policy where we have to apply, we have to seek the commission's approval to apply for a grant. And then after the grant if it's awarded, then the commission votes then to whether or not to accept the grant. So it's a two-part process.
And my second question is, I see that the time frame is June 4th, 2013. If we are awarded the grant, how much time do we have to act on that? I'm just curious.
Mr. Viner, do you know how the answer to that question?
I'm not aware of what the response and decision-making timetable is.
Okay.
We will contact the Sheriff's Department and find out. Mr. Fulcher, recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the worst kind of grant. If we win it, we're obligated to hire 8 people. And if we win it, we're obligated to pay 25% of their costs, their salary costs, for 3 years, not to mention all the overhead costs. Because we bring on 8 deputies, you can be sure we're going to need 8 cars. And we're going to need 8 equipment for 8 cars. And all the other communication support. And then after 3 years, we're obligating ourselves to continue this. In effect, this is guaranteeing that we will have to pay for a $700,000, when you add all the overheads in, $700,000 budget increase for the sheriff in 3 years. That's what it's going to cost us. Now, nobody's even made a case why they need 8 more deputies. Nobody came in here and made a case that they need 8 more deputies. And nobody has made a case that the county needs and the people need 8 more deputies, more than they need $800,000 worth of textbooks in the school, for example. So this doesn't make any sense to me, to obligate the county to this kind of money when nobody's even made a case for these 8 people.
This just makes no sense. Doesn't pass the common sense test, and I'm voting against it.
Mr. Kaler, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Part of my job responsibilities with the City of Maryville is to write grants. I'm very familiar with the fire service side of this type of grant. On the fire service side, it's called an AFG grant, which stands for Assistance to Firefighters Grant. Obviously, on the police side, it's called a COPS grant. And I know I'm very, very familiar with the way this works. It's not uncommon for the fire service or law enforcement to request these grants. I'm not saying that makes it right for us. I'm just saying this is not anything out of the ordinary. I feel quite confident that the Sheriff's Department probably has vacancies. Well, as a matter of fact, I know they have vacancies. So I guess I'm looking at this a little bit different than my fellow commissioner in the sense that if we have those positions, and those positions will ultimately, I hope, be filled, I hope they're all filled, by doing this, at least we are offsetting some of the cost associated with that hiring. Again, I'm not speaking specifically for the Sheriff's Department, but my familiarity with these type of grants, they're written or they're issued in order for locales such as us to be able to replenish things, personnel lost through attrition, personnel lost through the economy issues, and it's designed to help us pay those or offset those costs for up to 3 years. I don't actually look at it as taking on another burden. I look at it as helping offset some of the burden that we would inevitably be required to meet.
Mr. Fulcher, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That raises an interesting point. I understood the answers that the Sheriff's Department gave at the Budget Committee to say that these were 8 additional positions, not filling existing positions. I think that's a key issue here. And I would ask Mr. Vineyard, what's right here? Are these 8 additional positions, or is this money to be used for 8 existing positions which are currently vacant?
The comment from the Sheriff's Department yesterday was that these would be 8 additional positions.
That's what I thought I heard.
Mr. Harrison, you're recognized to speak, sir.
Yes, not really speaking for anybody, but the sheriff is appointed by the people and voted by the people, and right now, I'm sure that the Sheriff's Department, they're looking at a huge increase in drug problems, meth. It's becoming more and more rampant. So this is part of his job to look after the citizens' safety in the schools, and this is specifically for drug-related officers. And that's what he's trying to combat from what I'm seeing.
Mr. Kaler, you're recognized to speak for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with fellow Commissioner Harrison, and I apologize to Commissioner Foltz. I misunderstood or misinterpreted the information as to whether or not this was for new positions, so I stand corrected.
Seeing no other discussion, please vote to forward this on to the full commission.
You have 18 yeses and 1 no.
The motion passes to forward this item to the full commission. I'm going to hold off on the other 2 budget committee items because those are handled separately as items G6 and G7. Also from the Budget Committee last night is information only, electronic payments, and fund balance policy. I'll entertain a motion to forward these 2 items forward to the full commission to be included in their packet as information only. Motion made by Mr. French. second by Mr. Carver. Mr. Vineyard, if I could ask you to please enlighten us a little bit about the electronic payments and the fund balance policy that is in our packet for information only.
There's regarding the electronic payment, part of what we try to do as a support function is to become as efficient as we can be, which hopefully saves us money both in the short term and in the long term. What we've done is had joint conversations with our IT department, the trustee, and my staff who are involved in vendor payments, paying accounts payable. One of the things that we're trying to do, we will be establishing a new banking relationship with the First Tennessee Bank effective July 1. Forget the current circumstances right now. And one of the things that we considered in the course of evaluating those proposals is their ability to handle electronic payments. And they are very much in that arena, big time. And one of the things we're trying to do is become more efficient. We don't want to generate any more paper than we have to. We want to be able to store documents electronically if we can and prevent us from having to acquire more space to store more documents. And in the course of our internal discussions and coming up with procedures and policies that would allow us to maintain sound internal controls, we researched the state statute, and there is a statute that allows us to do this. Part of the requirement of the statute is that you have to get approval from the comptroller's office to be able to do this. This being making payments electronically. We have talked to a number of county governments in the area, peers and larger county governments. No one is doing right now what we are proposing to do. And we have submitted our game plan, our policy, and our procedure to the comptroller's office. They have reviewed that in Nashville and have signed off on it. We took this to the Budget Committee yesterday as a policy initiative to ask them for their thoughts on it, if they had any problem with us going forward. The statute does not require a commission approval, but because it's policy in its nature, we wanted to make at least the Budget Committee aware of it, and certainly the commission by providing it information only. If we proceed with this, we will be the only county in the state of Tennessee that will be doing this according to the comptroller's office. We are not proposing day one we flip a switch and all of a sudden every vendor that we do business with will be electronic. We will have to ease into this because, in fairness to our vendors, everyone is not equipped to do electronic payments, receive electronic payments. So we'll have to get banking information from all of our vendors. We'll have to make sure that's securitized, and our policies on our side are good. We'll have some adaptation we have to do on the information technology side to be able to complete all of this, and we will ease into it is the proposal that we have. But I think it's a very efficient, very progressive way for Blount County to do its business.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this include electronic invoicing? Our vendors will invoice us electronically, and then we'll also pay electronically?
That is the proposal.
Oh, that's great.
We will have obviously some vendors that won't be that sophisticated. Sure. We are experiencing right now the interest on the part of vendors to give us discounts if we will transact business this way.
Sure, any of the large companies want to do it that way.
Effectively, what happens is money gets deposited right into their account. It's kind of like direct deposit on payroll.
Is this something you did in your prior life, or are you just picking this up?
No, well, this is just something we wanted to do. I mean, I don't like to spend money any more than anybody else, but I don't like to see the same process to pay a vendor handled through 4 different sets of hands in my department either.
Oh, yeah.
So there are a lot of efficiencies here for us.
I think it's great.
Thank you. Randy, will this have potential savings as far as, talked about without having to go through a whole bunch of hands. Does this have the potential of saving the county, say, in employees, mail, stamps, stuff like that?
Absolutely. Check stock, envelopes, postage, you save and eliminate, not counting everybody's time, which is the most expensive piece, but certainly there's some tangible costs that we pick up immediately in savings.
An estimate of what you would plan to save in this?
No, I would be very surprised if, I'd like to be, in a year's time at least, have this thing halfway integrated with our vendors. And a lot of that will depend on our vendors, how quickly they can adapt. But we know the advantages there for us and them.
Mr. Vineyard, thank you for explaining that to us. I think it is something that's exciting. If you can you please go over a little bit about the fund balance, general information that we all received last week via email from your office?
Well, as I've stated on many occasions, been reported in the paper and all, this budget proposal that is before you relies on a significant use of fund balance. I have met with the overwhelming majority of you individually about the budget, and a number of you have asked me various questions about how prudent is it to use fund balance, and would it impact our bond rating? Does it jeopardize us in having enough available cash to pay bills when our taxes are not coming in as heavily in the summer season? So rather than me give you opinions and rather than me give you my experiences alone, I wanted to get PFM, our financial advisor, to give us some independent information that I could provide to you that is not colored with my view in any way, and it is an objective view based on various resources. Those resources would be the Government Finance Officers Association, which is the professional organization for folks such as myself, their guidance on how you ought to consider fund balance and the use of that fund balance. It also includes some commentary and excerpts out of the rating agencies, Fitch, S&P, and Moody's, and gives you some guidance on how they view fund balance. And then there's some table data in there that compares our credit, Blount County, with other cities and counties, most all of which are larger than us. But I like to think a little big sometimes, so I like to compare us to larger credits, similar credits, but larger governments. And then there's some Tennessee data in there as well. You can see from the data that I gave you, we stack up very favorably right now with credit quality in larger cities and counties in the status of our fund balance. We're approaching 20% of general fund revenues. The key thing that I want to impress upon you is the hard work that you all and the elected officials play in getting Blount County to the financial condition that it currently enjoys. You're to be commended for that. I had nothing to do with that. And it takes a lot of work to get to that point. Your successes and your stewardship has been recognized by independent bodies, namely Standard & Poor's and Fitch. Standard & Poor's last year took the negative outlook off of our credit rating and reaffirmed us at a AA- credit. And in their commentary, they were complimenting Blount County for its use of funding its operations out of current revenue streams and not utilizing fund balance as had been done in previous years. Fitch reaffirmed our credit rating this year as a AA- and then added in their exit interview with me that Blount County was in a position to be considered for a credit upgrade if we continue to show the financial discipline and the improvements that have been made over the last 2 to 3 years. Key in both of their analysis was continue to fund your operations from operating revenues. Secondly, get your elected body to approve. We approved a debt management policy, which was done prior to my arrival. They would like to see all governments have a policy on fund balance. We do not have one. And they like to see capital plans for all governments. We do not have one. We're trying to get there, but we're not where we need to be. So I wanted to give you, instead of just my commentary, some objective information from people who would review our credit worthiness. The other thing I want to caution you on is it is not inappropriate to use fund balance. You need to be prudent in how we use it. Prudence would be a policy, as you'll see in some of that commentary, how, if you use fund balance, how you restore or replenish that use of fund balance. And in the past, we have used fund balance to subsidize operations. And in effect, that's what we're doing with the budget proposal that's before you. I can tell you from firsthand experience, I have lived it, and it is no fun. In my former life, we had a credit downgrade, and it took us 5 years to recover that downgrade. And it is a long, hard slog. So I just want to make you aware of that. I would be more than happy to bring a policy before this body. We would bring it through the Budget Committee first, and that is an intention I have. But given the circumstances we find ourselves right now, I did not want you to make any decision without having some objective input rather than just my commentary on a fund balance policy. So that's why I've provided the information.
Thank you, Mr. Vineyard. A few questions. Mr. French, you're recognized to speak, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Randy, what are the negative aspects of downgrading our credit rating, credit performance?
Well, the simple answer is it will generally cost us more money if we borrow money. Some information that I got, if you looked at a comparison of a AA credit, which would be one step up from where we are a AA minus. If you consider a AA minus as 0, the base, if you got a credit upgrade to a AA, then you should expect, all things being equal, you should expect to see somewhere around a 9 or 10 basis point less cost to borrow money. Conversely, if you were to assume a AA minus and you received a one-step decrease in credit rating to a A+, then you would expect to see a 9, 10, 11 basis point increase in the cost of borrowing if we were borrowing. So that's the simple answer. It will cost you more money, all things being equal. The thing that we have to be guarded against right now is because of where we've come as a country, with the economy being what it has been and still is, the rating agencies are really looking much harder at credits. And they're not going to be as quick if we were to receive a downgrade to restore that downgrade on any accelerated basis. It will be a long, hard slog if we receive a downgrade.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, on the credit rating, has our credit rating been increased recently, or has it been the same for a long period of time?
I considered S&P an upgrade only because they removed the negative outlook. It was up until last year we were AA minus with a negative outlook. The negative outlook was removed, so we're a AA minus.
But we've been AA minus for a long time. Is that? well,
I don't know
10
when,
years.
I don't know when we got the double A minus. I don't
At least 10 years, I think. Okay. And if we didn't get downgraded in '08, when all our bonds blew up, we're probably fairly robust. But along those lines, how much naked variable rate debt do we have left?
If you're referring to
Unhedged,
unhedged or
yeah.
unswapped, it's around 5 or 6%, I believe.
5 or 6%, about $10 million, $10, $12 million.
Somewhere along in there.
Okay, because that's the most vulnerable to a credit downgrade. Those interest rates would pop immediately because it's unhedged.
Sure. And to that point, if I may, what complicates this a little bit for us is I asked for your approval and you granted the pursuit of new letters of credit related to our variable rate financing. In a way, that's a debt offering, so it will impact, we would be impacted by a credit rating on that. Although we're looking at the credit worthiness of a bank, they too are looking when they price it
Sure,
to
the
us
cost,
at our credit worthiness.
the cost of the letter of credit would go up.
And
Yeah.
the purpose of that, the secondary purpose of that would be, once we get those letters of credit responses, and hopefully a much less expensive cost to those letters of credit than what I brought to you last month, we would then pursue refinancing some of our outstanding debt to take advantage of the pricing in the marketplace. If we do that, we have to factor in, depending on what we do on our budget for next year, we have to factor in the impact that might have on our credit rating, which we would have to get if we were to go and refinance any portion of our debt.
Well, we want to nail down those letters of credit ASAP and for long periods. You're talking about nailing those down for 3 years, are you not?
Well, we have asked for, at a minimum, 3 to 5 years, and then we have also asked them if they have any alternative, longer-term pricing structure, we would consider that. So I am not restricting what they respond to us.
Okay, but you're looking for long-term letters of
Absolutely.
credit, and I
Absolutely.
understand why. Okay. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Vineyard regarding the debt policy or the proposed electronic payments? Seeing no other questions, we need to vote to forward these forward to the full commission to be included in the commission pack as information only. Please vote.
Give 19 yeses.
The information for electronic payments and fund balance shall be forwarded on to the full commission to be included in the packets as information only. That concludes item G5. Next is item G6, resolution setting the tax rate for the year beginning July 1, 2013, and ending June 30th of 2014. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Mr. Samples. Do I have a second? Second made by Mr. Moon. Any discussion? Mr. Fulch, you're recognized to speak, sir.
I just want to be clear on this. We're not actually setting the tax rate. We're just moving it to the commission. Correct?
That is correct. We are just
Okay.
simply moving this item forward to the full commission. Seeing no other discussion, please vote to forward to the full commission the proposed tax rate for 2013-2014.
Give 19 yeses.
The resolution to forward to the full commission has been, or the motion has been approved. The resolution shall be forwarded to the full commission. Next up is item G7, resolution making appropriations for various funds, departments, institutions, offices, and agencies of Blount County, Tennessee for the year beginning on July 1st, 2013 and ending on June 30th of 2014. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Mr. Samples to forward to the full commission, second by Mr. Carver. Mr. Fulcher, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This budget does not live within the county's means. Expenditures exceed revenue. It's a bad budget, and therefore I'm voting against it.
Any other discussion on forwarding this forward to the full commission? Seeing no other discussion, please vote to forward this resolution forward to the full commission.
Have 17 yeses and 2 noes.
The motion passes. It shall be forwarded on to the full commission for consideration. At this time, that concludes item G7 and concludes new business. At this time, I will take public input of items not on the agenda. Seeing no hands, at this time, I'll move for a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry, I did not see a hand go up fast enough. Please come forward.
That's okay. I do not know what I'm doing, but I'm trying, so.
Please just tell us your name and the district that you represent.
My name is Rosalind Lyons, and I'm in District 4. Okay, 3 minutes. I guess a picture's worth 1,000 words. I'd like to pass this picture around to show you a little bit of a problem that we're having in our district, and I assume that everybody's having a similar problem in their district. This is a picture of...
Please don't come forward. Just stand there and just kind of show it around as best as you can.
This is a picture of a water source in my district that is a rental property that is undisclosed to the renters. There's children drinking this water, and it is right next to me. And as a commission, I can't believe that you know that this is going on. And I am coming here today to ask you, please help me. I don't know what I'm doing as far as your world, but I do know that this should not be in Blount County. I love my county. I thank you for your work and your dedication, and I am here to help. I want to solve the problem. I want to stand by your side and work through this. Currently, I am working to get city water put down through there. We're getting ready to send the letter out, but since this is rental property, I cannot make the landlord put the city water in there. I have no law to help me fight as a person of my community. I have tried to call Justin Teague about this issue. Spoke to Justin. Justin came out. Very nice man. He said there is no law on the books that he can stop this. So I thought that it was time that I brought it to your attention what we have going on in Blount County. So I guess I'm asking not for you to come in on property owners or anything. If they want to drink dirty water, that's their business. But to not disclose to a renter and to children, this upsets me. And I am asking for your help. I am willing to, like I said, work, do anything I can to help solve this. So, can you help me?
Yes, what is the address of the property you're talking about?
It's 1822 Hughes Loop. I am 1830 Hughes Loop.
Did I answer your question, Mr. Samples? Mr. Farmer?
Yes, Ms. Lyons and I spoke. I referred her to Justin and to Roger Fields. And in essence, I don't know, it's an environmental issue. And I don't know, I haven't talked with her since, I guess you spoke with them, but she and I did talk about this, a few weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
And to be honest with you, part of what her problem is, and I don't know the route to go, the county attorney may have to advise us, is actually a disclosure issue as far as rental property. And I don't know that we actually have that right, but from our standpoint. But from her standpoint, it is definitely an environmental issue.
I run a farm, a micro farm just above this. And this is in a drainage ditch that my farm runs off into. So not only is it unfiltered, it is pretty much feces coming down through the ditch where their water lines run. Yes, sir, it's fertilized. And I do everything within my power to be environmentally friendly. And I do not know what to do, but I do know that this can't keep on, and he's getting ready to rent this property again. I have Hughes Loop Water Project. If y'all want to see, I would be glad to work with a Robert Ramsey or a Wendy Pitts Reeves on possibly doing some different things, on maybe writing some laws or something to keep this from happening.
Those are two former commissioners, Ms. Lyons.
Okay, sorry.
But thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm sure, I know Mr. Farmer, Mr. Mayor has heard that as well, about possibly looking at the county attorney as well to see what we can do as a governmental body. But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you. Do I speak at the commissioners meeting? Because I have a family that is moved out of this property that lives in my basement, a mother and 2 children that is working poor, and she said she would like to tell you her problems and her children's sicknesses.
Next Thursday night at 7 p.m. is the convening of the full commission, and she's welcome to come and talk, and you're welcome to come and talk at that point in time of items not on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. French, hold on one second.
Mr. Chairman, I just have an announcement that the
Education?
yes, about the education
Just give me 1
committee.
second.
Thank
Yes, Ms. Lambert? I was thinking, like Mr. Farmer, this was environmental or health department, one of the two.
I think health department.
Ms. Lyons, have you contacted the Blount County Health Department?
Yes, sir. That and Justin Peoples, who they sent out, and then we had electrical issues and floors falling in, and basically all of them said that their hands were tied because there were no laws to give them the ability to proceed on those particular problems.
Health department, you don't have to have a law. If it's in
Thank you for expressing your frustration, Ms. Lyons. I'm sure it's equally shared by some of the commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to announce that there will be a meeting of the Education Committee at the central office on Thursday at 12 noon. And anyone here is invited to attend. Thank you.
Please don't forget, next Thursday night at 7 p.m. in room 430, we will have the full convening of the Blount County Board of Commissioners. That means we'll start promptly at 7 p.m. Seeing no other discussion, no other lights on, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.